It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of October 17th, 2003. We got 4 films to look at today, so let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is the Michael Bay-produced remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Even though I'd never seen any of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films up to that point, but this is, of course, the remake of the 1974 original, directed by Tobe Hooper, who was involved in this film as one of the producers. And it's funny, because in addition to Michael Bay, guess who else is one of the producers on this? Mike Fleiss. Yeah, the man behind The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, Who Wants to Marry a Multimillionaire, history's greatest monster for trying to humanize the romantic aspects of those shows by having people acting stupid, dressing up in stupid costumes. Yeah, history's greatest monster produced this movie, and yeah, that's a fun fact for you. In fact, he's produced several horror movies. I mean, he did this. He also did many of the Hostel movies too, and also Poseidon. But this was his first film he ever produced, and unlike The Bachelor, which is one of the worst things ever, this is not really the worst thing ever. And you have a plot here. Simple plot here if you've seen these movies. It follows a group of young adults traveling through rural Texas who encounter Leatherface and his murderous family. And if you've never seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I like how the trailer doesn't really give you a clear indication of who's working for who, which characters are going to get out. Like when you watch that trailer for the first time, you never put it together that Arlie Ermey is somehow involved in this besides being the police officer. But the film is actually a pretty good horror remake. I mean, it's a remake of a classic movie, but it's modernized in a style that works to Michael Bay's advantages. It works to the advantages of this director, Marcus Nispel, who would do the same thing with Friday the 13th to lesser successful results. And the film knew how to keep the tension going. I mean, it's a film that's clearly also a TNA movie, because you see a lot of shots of Jessica Biel in her white beater shirt and like these very low cut jeans. I mean, they aren't screwing around. They know exactly who they're going for here, and it's just a perfect Halloween movie. A film that you don't ask too much of. You know what you should be going into if you're going into this movie, and for the most part, it definitely delivers on that and then some. I mean, it's a film that's not for everyone. If you've never been a particular fan of these movies, kind of like myself, you probably wouldn't be that interested in it. But even someone like me who's never been a big fan of these movies, hasn't seen all of them really, all of them are kind of the same movie pretty much. This one's probably the best one out of all the movies that they've done, which is not really saying a whole lot when everyone that came after this, Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw 3D, were all pretty bad. So, yeah, this is probably one of the better versions of the story to be told. And it led to the charge of all these different horror remakes coming out after this point. I mean, you had the House of Wax that followed after this, which was not a success. Then Friday the 13th, as I mentioned, Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play. I mean, this was the movie that kind of set the tone for the horror remakes that would come later on down the road here. And it's still probably one of the better ones. And even they screwed it up with the next movie they did, which was a prequel. And, yeah, that one didn't work out very well either. And that one was bad from a number of different perspectives. This is just bad on the left. This is not even that bad. It's just, for the general viewing audience who's not into these horror movies, they could see it as a bad movie in general. But for what it is, it's good. It's a good movie if you know what you're going into it. I mean, it gives you everything you want. It's straight to the point. And it makes for an entertaining film in general. Nothing too spectacular, nothing too amazing. Know what you're going into with this. You'll end up having a great time with it. So, that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is John Grisham's Runaway Jury. Based off of Grisham's 1996 novel of the same name, you have a lawyer, played by Dustin Hoffman, who's pitted against shady jury consultant Rankin Fitch, played by Gene Hackman, who uses unlawful means to stack the jurors with people sympathetic to the defense. Meanwhile, a high-stakes cat-and-mouse game begins when juror Nicholas Easter, played by John Cusack, and his girlfriend, played by Rachel Weisz, appear to be able to sway the jury to deliver any verdict they want in a trial against the gun manufacturer. It's a decent courtroom thriller. I mean, it's pretty much a straightforward courtroom thriller. It doesn't really do a whole lot in particular to make it stand out on its own or anything, but the performances are good enough, and the mystery aspect of the case itself It does keep you invested all the way through. It's hard to believe this is the last John Grisham movie made based off one of his more serious books, because the next movie that would come out, the last one based off of one of his books, was Christmas with the Cranks. And, yeah, hard to believe that's actually based off of a John Grisham book, but that is indeed the case. And we will delve more into that when we get to next year. But as far as this goes, you get pretty much what you expect with this type of film. Like I said, it doesn't do anything that new or significant. Sometimes it can feel like it's going off the rails a little bit in terms of its story, but it does keep you invested all the way through because the performances are so good and they're keeping you deep into what's going on here. And for that, you got to give it credit for that. And I think it's a film that definitely is not one of John Grisham's, the best John Grisham adaptations. If I had to pick the best ones, probably The Firm and then The Client. But other than that, it's good. It's good. Can't really say too much more about that one. A decent legal thriller, to say the least. So, let's go ahead and move on to our next film, and that is Cate Blanchett in Joel Schumacher's second film of 2003, Veronica Guerin. So this is a story about the life of Irish journalist Veronica Guerin, played by Cate Blanchett, whose investigation into the drug trade in Dublin leads to her murder in 1996 at the age of 36. And for Joel Schumacher, like I said, this was the second movie he made in 2003 following Phone Booth, which I would say is the better of the two movies, because this one, while it has a lot of good elements to it, I mean, it's got Cate Blanchett. Cate Blanchett will usually put in a very good performance no matter what you put her in. And even that good performance she has in here, playing this character, the story is very much a generic storyline, and it's actually the second time this story has been adapted to the big screen. The first one being When the Sky Falls, which stars Joan Allen in the role of Veronica Guerin. And I'd have to say, between the two of them, that one's probably the better film in general, but this one is trying its best. Like I said, it's Joel Schumacher trying to prove that, hey, I'm not a hack director who made Batman and Robin. I can make good movies, and he has proven since then he can make good movies, but this is one of those ones where it just feels like the pieces weren't exactly there in the story department to really make it stand out any more than what this movie eventually does. Because it is a film that has a lot of interesting aspects to it. This is a very intriguing storyline about this woman who delves deep into this drug trade going on here, and she gets killed because of it. It's because of it, and that should be a good storyline to follow here, but it really doesn't deliver all that much in the long run. It's a kind of a boring film. It does run a little bit too long, and even though Cate Blanchett is great in the movie, it's really not enough to save the film in general. I mean, once she leaves the picture, the film just becomes bland and just boring. It's not really worth it when it's all said and done. So, noble effort, but I can't recommend Veronica Guerin. But I can recommend our last movie, and that is Katie Holmes in the ensemble comedy Pieces of April. So yeah, this is actually a Thanksgiving movie. We talk about Thanksgiving movies, and usually the one that always comes to mind, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Charlie Brown Thanksgiving, and there's not really a whole lot more after that. And there's been some good ones though. Home for the Holidays is a good one. Dan in Real Life is a very good one. That one takes place around Thanksgiving, I believe. But there have been some good ones, but not as memorable as the ones that stick out the most. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. And this is one of those ones that's definitely in the category of the ones that aren't as memorable as they should be, because this is a really good film. You have Katie Holmes starring as this woman who's about to prepare a Thanksgiving dinner for her estranged family, and she's got all these different things going on. Her family's got a lot of things going on in there. You see the cast there: Derek Luke, Sean Hayes, Allison Pill, Oliver Platt, Patricia Clarkson. Clarkson got a lot of acclaim for this. She got nominated for an Oscar and a Golden Globe for this performance, and it's hard not to see why. And speaking of Dan in Real Life, this is done by the same man who did Dan in Real Life, Peter Hedges, who also wrote the script for About a Boy. I mean, a lot of talent around here, and an intriguing, very, very good storyline with a lot of good elements of mixtures of comedy and drama thrown in there. I mean, it's a really good, thought-provoking film in general. It's a film that really features the highlights of very good performances. You see that Katie Holmes does have a potential as an actress, and she would show that in some other movies down the road here, even if the films were not that great. She would usually turn in a very good performance in general. I felt she kind of got a lot of flack, especially in something like Batman Begins, where people really got on her, and they had to replace her with Maggie Gyllenhaal in the next movie, which did work out in the end for The Dark Knight. But I don't know. I didn't think she was that bad in Batman Begins, but that's a whole other thing altogether that we can delve into. But in here, she does have a lot of charisma. She shows a lot of grace in here. She is very good in the role. The film is very intense. It's a mixture of very heavy stuff, very funny stuff, just like what this guy did with Dan in real life. That one more on a mainstream level. This is more on the line of what you would expect for an independent movie like this. And it is a very good film in general. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was very enjoyable. I thought it worked all the way through. All the performances are great. The feel of Thanksgiving is definitely all throughout this. I really liked it. I think it's a very underrated little gem. One that's definitely worth checking out. Pieces of April. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. The next time we meet, we have 7 movies to look at on the weekend before Halloween. A lot of stuff coming out, including Scary Movie 3, the first film that uses the Zucker Brothers style of spoof comedy rather than the Wayans Brothers style of spoof comedy, which I think works better for this. We'll get to that. What looks like a spoof comedy, but is actually meant to be a serious film. Cuba Gooding Jr. and Ed Harris in the infamous Radio. Angelina Jolie and Gerard Butler starring in Beyond Borders. We also have the limited release of Disney's Brother Bear, which actually opens on the day after Halloween this year, in this particular year, 2003. Meg Ryan in The Cut, which was a big deal at the time. Gus Van Sant's Elephant, and also the Mel Gibson produced The Singing Detective starring Robert Downey Jr. We'll talk about those films coming up on the next episode, so be on the lookout for that. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to see more movies like this, more videos like this, more movies. I mean, you do get more movies on the next episode, but if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button. Check out the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. So with that said, I'm off. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and until then, take care.